Okay, so let's jump into Earthship Principle 4, building with natural and recycled materials. So natural and recycled materials, it's a pretty broad topic, but some examples here commonly used in Earthships are tyres, bottles, cans, rammed earth, Adobe, cob, bamboo, wood. Other materials we'll have a look at, urbanite, and so on. A quick overview of a couple of these are tyres, which is kind of an Earthship signature material. It's typically what people think of when you mention an Earthship, if they know anything about them. Bottle walls are another common feature, quite pleasing to look at, let light through from room to room. Aluminium can walls are essentially lost formwork, gives you kind of a cement matrix with holes where the cans are, so you use less material, less cement, less sand. Rammed earth, that's kind of one of my favourites. I'm a bit biased towards rammed earth, I guess. This is a picture of the AG Union, I think, AG Credit Lobby wall in the US. It weighs about 40 tonnes, I think. I did a bunch of reading about that. Particularly pleasant in their lobby in the US. We've got Adobe as well. This is a picture of an Adobe wall at the 4-person eco home I worked on in Taiwan. It was part of the 2018 International Taichung Flora Expo. And a cob wall here on the right. Cob, again, quite flexible. We've got other types of natural or recycled materials such as bamboo, wood. Straw is another one with really low embodied energy. Urbanite is things like concrete bricks, masonry that have been demolished or removed from another building site that you can use again. Engineered timber beams, I really like the look of these, glulam, timber and bamboo kind of beams. Obviously done in a workshop or a factory, so they're strips or layers of bamboo or timber that are glued together, really, really strong. And all kinds of insulation made from paper or other recycled materials. Expanded clay is another option. Okay, so some details on tyres here. The kind of Earthship signature material. Common objections to this is that they don't look nice, but then, looking at concrete blocks over here, neither do concrete blocks. They're not particularly pleasing aesthetically. And of course you'd apply finishes, render, plaster, whether you're using natural or modern kind of building materials to finish your walls externally and internally. Another thing that seems to be a bone of contention with tyres is the off-gassing question that's come up. Do they off-gas when the walls are finished? Some people say yes, some people say no. I've done a bunch of reading on it. You might want to look into that yourself before thinking about using tyres, but they seem to last, as far as we're concerned, for the human time frame, human time scale. They seem to last forever pretty much when they're protected from ultraviolet light. So I'm not sure whether ultraviolet light is what can cause the off-gassing as it causes degradation in the rubber material, but they're really, really strong. And once you've rendered them and plastered them, they're certainly no less pleasing to the eye than concrete blocks, because they're hidden beneath the wall finish, right? So some positives about tyres are they're readily available. The cost, if you're picking them up from a recycling yard or from mechanic shops, auto repair places, maybe they're giving them away free just so they don't have to pay for disposal themselves. The mass is obviously a big bonus. You can get a lot of stored heat in these walls. If you were building the same wall out of concrete, it would cost an arm and a leg. Very thick walls as well, if you're looking for say sound reduction or whatever. It's gonna sound very nice and quiet inside a house that's got a wall 2 feet thick, compared to, I don't know, 6 inches of concrete or whatever. Almost any dirt will do in a tyre, so when you're building a wall out of rammed earth, maybe you have to be a bit more particular about screening the soil and the size of rocks that you let in there. But with a tyre, it's this really strong steel reinforced rubber almost a cylinder. You can literally put pretty much any dirt that you like in there, as long as the moisture content is right. Then it's going to compact well. It's some amazing engineering. I mean, if you look into something I shared the other day, Goodyear, and it was nuclear weapons manufacturers or something, or some kind of really high tech company that kind of pioneered computer aided design or physical modelling, and they're really, really well engineered. And if you think about the stresses that your car undergoes under heavy braking, going from 100 kilometres an hour to 0 in seconds, then tyres are really, really, really strong in terms of making a brick out of them with rammed earth in there. You're not going to damage these things very easily. You've got flexibility with the wall design as well. You can lay these circular earth blocks out in whatever kind of pattern you desire for your wall. Curved walls are not so much of a problem. Durability, again, once they're filled with earth and the wall is rendered, plastered on the inside, they're going to last a very, very long time. I don't think we need to worry about it during our lifetimes. Moving on to bottle walls. They go full width through the wall, so what you do with the bottle is you cut it off just below the shoulder, with two bottles the same size, or the same diameter at least. Maybe the height of the bottle is not so important, but same diameter. You tape them together with duct tape, masking tape, any kind of tape, I guess, doesn't matter once they're cemented in the wall. And then that acts as, one thing it does is it means that you require less material to make the wall again, you require less sand, cement and so on, but it also admits the light through. You can see you get some really nice effects with bottle walls. Also, you don't have to use a lot of energy to melt them down to make other glass products, so yeah, possible benefit depending on the situation. Aluminium can walls, same kind of thing with the material in the wall. You're creating a sand cement matrix where the can forms a space within the wall that you don't need material for. And then again, it's just rendered. This is a scratch coat here on what looks like a domed roof, but you see the tyres there, they would also receive a scratch coat, and I think this bottle wall, I'm not sure if those bottles go all the way through or not, but it looks like here they're using cans in this space and then bottles in this space as some kind of light feature within the wall itself. So you can get quite creative using, tyres, cans, bottles in terms of the design of the wall itself. Rammed earth is my personal favourite, although not necessarily the best for everything. I just love the look of it. The strata that you get from the slight variations in earth that you put in. You can also use dye in this. Iron oxide, I think, is what is commonly used to get the red effect if your soil hasn't got any red clay in it or is not very red itself. There's probably, I'm not sure if they're using some kind of carbon like charcoal for the black stuff, but I've messed around a little bit with dyes making test blocks up at my friend Greg's in G-Works in Taiwan. He let me use his workshop, and I've played around a bit with this, but this is just a really nice example of the wall. So the walls that you make would be monolithic. There's no board or rendering or plastering required when you finish them. That's another thing I like about them. They're as massive as the rammed earth in tyres because it's compacted, compressed earth. You will need formwork, obviously, so you'll need to plan your walls a little bit more carefully, possibly your window openings and door openings. Beautiful wall finishes. In terms of being a little bit more difficult, you'd need some basic carpentry skills, but you can get some good ideas of how to make the formwork from Building Homes with Earth by Minky, Gurno Minky. You can have a look at his work. It's not that difficult if you can use a saw, but probably the formwork you'll need two guys to move it around because you might be working with an 8 foot by 4 foot sheet at a time with plenty of wailers on the side depending on the type of formwork that you use. But I like this idea of a rammed earth wall in using formwork more than the tyres as well, because this method or technique seems to lend itself more to mechanically ramming. I've rammed a few tyres with my friend Steve over on the East Coast at his Earthship style mountain cabin in the summer. It's humbling. It's quite tough work, but you don't have to push yourself that hard, I guess, if you don't want to. I was only there for 5 days or a week, so I wanted to kind of get a lot done with him. But when you're laying out the formwork, if you've got a 9-inch, 18-inch, 2-foot wide wall with your formwork, it's much easier to get a small whacker plate in there. In fact, I think there's one in Gurno Minky's book that kind of has some kind of sensor or something on it, so that when it hits the end of the formwork, the direction reverses and the whacker plate just goes back and forth within the wall and whacks it for you. So you could theoretically have several forms set up, or a length of forms set up, instead of just working on one with a backhoe and guys tamping it. You could have a small whacker plate in there. Pneumatic tampers seem to be quite easy to get hold of these days, so they look like a giant pogo stick with compressed air going through it, and they just do the whacking for you. So we tamped the earth down by hand at Steve's place on the East Coast, and it's doable. And if you've got a bunch of friends to help and throw them a keg of beer or something and they want to help out, then great, it'll probably happen quite quickly. Another material is Adobe. Essentially it's just sand and clay. You can add rice straw husks, etc. in there as a filler, or to help with drying of the bricks so they don't crack so much. Straw would help with that. Doesn't actually add a lot of tensile strength from what I've read. Common misconception. They're easy to make, they're very pleasant aesthetically, they're easy to recycle back into dirt. Can be nearly as massive as a tyre wall, somewhere near, but if you're compressing earth in a tyre wall or in a rammed earth wall from 11 to 7, maybe 2/3 the weight, but they're quite substantial. As with other earth-based materials, Adobe bricks, rammed earth walls, cob, they regulate humidity really, really well. And some people say that they're difficult to keep clean in terms of dusting them off, or cobwebs or something. I'm not sure if that differs if you apply linseed oil or some kind of coating to them to keep them smooth, and whether that then itself inhibits the humidity regulation that they seem to do so well. And then cob walls as well would be another natural material. Soil and straw, basically, and some water, obviously. They're massive, so you get the thermal mass. Materials are readily available, probably on your site. Relatively easy to build, although you probably would have to, pay decent money for someone who was an artist in their trade. You could probably spend a lifetime learning cob, as you can with any natural material. Easy to pick up and easy to do. You can spend a lifetime mastering it. I think you have to leave it maybe a day or two between building courses with cob to let it dry, or it can sag under its own weight. You've got freeform kind of flexibility with the wall design, so you can make any shape that you can imagine, I guess, with the wall. And as with tile walls, rammed earth, Adobe, cob, they're pretty much fireproof, right? You can light a fire outside and you're not gonna burn through that wall if it's 1 foot thick, 2 foot thick of earth and clay, soil, sand, clay. So if you live in a fire-prone area, rammed earth, cob, Adobe could be an attractive solution. Wrapping that up then, if you're looking at building with natural and recycled materials yourself, the Earthship principles, thermal mass is the principle, and building with natural and recycled materials is the principle. So the tyres are just the thing that when they started building Earthships are really readily available every single place they looked where they were building Earthships. That may not be so where you live. I haven't checked to see if I could get a house worth of tyres here in Taiwan, but there are plenty of other natural materials out there. Straw bale, urbanite, engineered timber beams, again, paper, wool, insulation, expanded clay. Lots and lots and lots of options. And whatever is readily available in your area, you can quite easily do a quick Google search for embodied energy for X material versus Y material. You see straw down here is really, really low. Concrete seems to be quite low as well. You go up to the metals. There's glass on here. Glass is kind of up there, but the metals are really high in the amount of CO2 per kilogram of building material. Straw, stone. I'm guessing earth would be down here around straw and stone somewhere as well, because a lot of the time you're just using what you've got on site, or it's being trucked in from a short distance away, not very far away. So yeah, that's it with building with natural and recycled materials. One more video to go in this series, so drop it a like, subscribe if you want to see the next one, and I'll have that out soon. Cheers.